Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. We're taking a look at FIRO. I like to pronounce it as FIRO. I hope that's okay. And it is a recommendation from my supporters here asking me to go ahead and cover it because they want to know what to do essentially. So I appreciate you reaching out and letting me know. I'll be more than happy to cover this here. And of course, just know I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. Always do your own research. And if you'd like $25 in Bitcoin, there's a link in the description below from Voyager application. All you gotta do is download and install and fund $100 and you get $25. It's not bad. Also bear in mind too that I have a link to my Telegram community and my Patreon account if you'd like to offer your support. Without further ado, let's go ahead and check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at FIRO, or F-I-R-O, however you want to pronounce it. Before we go ahead and get started though, I always like to look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, just get a baseline of what's going on in the overall market, just to ensure we have an understanding of the market sentiment, and hopefully draw a correlation between the two and see if one impacts the other and how big of a difference there is, right? Just because a lot of times when you do research, we're looking just at one coin, we kind of get tunnel vision. It's important to look at the big picture. Okay, so we'll also look at the 1 day, 4 hour, 50 minute, and the 1 minute charts as well. So let's go ahead and first of all take a look at Bitcoin. Now I only really like to look at the 4-hour chart on Bitcoin personally because it gives us the best perspective with the moving averages being as consistent as they are. So just a note at this point here, price is in pretty good shape. So we're at 57,268 and potentially climbing. Great reason why this is a good thing is because the fact that the resistance line and or support, depending on when you look at this this level here, was essentially at 57,000. That's like a big number, okay? And coincidentally, the 50 and 200-day moving average is traveling really close to that point. So we have a pretty strong support level at this time. As long as this green bar closes above here, and we continue to get maybe a day or two worth of consistency above that level, we should be in good shape. Another thing to note too, and I picked this up in my last review, is the fact that we have likely a new resistance level right around 59,500, because that was tested about 6 or 7 times now. So hopefully we come up to this point and break through, becomes a stronger support, and we're home free, at least for a little while, until Bitcoin decides it wants to sell off all the way back down to 40,000. Not saying that'll happen, just as you can tell, a little frustrated with the way that Bitcoin's been performing lately. This little channel is quite annoying. Just looking forward to seeing it getting broken and staying above. So again, that's the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin. Let's look at Ethereum next. Now this is also the 4-hour chart, and just a note, with Bitcoin doing well, Ethereum's also doing well. Keep in mind too that Ethereum dipped down recently, just as Bitcoin did, but you see how it recovers? That's because Bitcoin selling off, people go from Bitcoin directly over to Ethereum because it's the largest altcoin out there, and it's typically one of the places that people reinvest their money when Bitcoin's doing poorly. And as you can tell, Ethereum, minus some of this consolidation from Bitcoin here and the sell-off here, is doing quite well for itself. It's going to test its recent all-time high of roughly 4,200. We'll see what happens with that. Keep an eye on that for later. But for now, that is how that works, and let's go ahead and take a look now at FIRO. I like the word FIRO. Is that okay for you? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Again, I don't do a lot of fundamental research on my technical analysis because it's just kind of one-sided, which is why I like to go from top to bottom, kind of get the full picture. Always do your own research, of course, but in regard to this one, I was asked by my community to go ahead and cover it. That's the main reason why I'm doing it. And let's see what we can do here, of course, to kind of identify what's going on. So this is a 1-day chart. So what do we see here that's interesting? Well, first of all, it's likely only been, it's either a recent ICO on the 28th of January. Again, I don't know this. Let me know in the comments below if you understand what that is, or perhaps it's just a recent entry to, and again, this is the Binance application that I'm using, the Binance desktop application, and I use the trading view chart. So just keep in mind, we don't have all the moving averages. The 200-day moving average and the 100 is kind of cut off there, so those are kind of null and void anyways with the price increase, but just know that's the reason why you don't see those there. And then another thing to note here as well is the recent volume. If you take a look at this here, volume's been pretty average I guess you could say. I mean, 2.35 million on a bigger day, that's still a lot. But of course, the price is kind of low. So generally speaking, the volume was overall kind of low in the past few weeks and months, and today just went crazy bonkers. And then of course we see the retracement. Correction, it wasn't today, I'm sorry. I was reading that wrong. It's not the 4-hour chart. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days ago. The price went crazy, and then it's consolidated ever since, and we saw a recent price increase, likely yesterday. In fact, that was still today if you consider that, because just a couple minutes ago we rolled into a new trading day. So that's why we see a small bar here with not a lot of volume. So that's kind of what's going on with the 1-day chart. Not much to disseminate, only just the fact that there's obviously a bullish momentum there, and the fact that the previous, I would venture to guess the previous all-time high is working as a support. We'll see that on the 4-hour. So looking at the 4-hour chart, we can see first things first that the, there we are, GYEN will be listed on Binance. Keep that in mind. We'll look at that later. But the 50-day moving average here worked as a support, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a great sign. That basically tells us that the price should be in this average range of somewhere between 16.5 to I guess 24. I know it's a pretty large range. The price is kind of figuring itself out right now, but with that essentially holding as a support, it's a very, very good sign. Tells us the price should be somewhere in this action here. So we're on the right track. Same with the RSI too, still under 70, so not extremely overbought. And the MACD down below here, again, MACD is just kind of an indication of what the momentum is looking like. It shouldn't be a reason to take entry, but oftentimes when you see the MACD swing upward like that, from the bottom up, swing in an upward fashion essentially, that is a sign of significant increase in bullish sentiment. In other words, the bears are essentially exhausted and the bulls are in play, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the general consensus there. That's going on. But again, we saw a bit of a sell-off here so far in this first 4-hour red bar. So we'll have to look a little closer and see what's going on. But generally speaking, that's the overall understanding of the 4-hour chart. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the 15. And this is where things usually get interesting because of the fact that we have higher highs, higher lows, recent sell-off, all-time high. Okay. No, recent high. Correction, all-time high is $25. What we should do is mark that. So keep in mind, if the price increases and starts ramping back up again, $25.25 approximately will be the next major resistance. So we'll see how that reacts eventually. We probably won't see that happen right away, but we are seeing some higher highs here in the last 24 hours approximately. Okay, so that's a good sign. It means it's coming back alive. Price is over VWAP as well, so the price is staying above the volume weighted average price. And something to note too, and I try to teach this in all my videos. Apologies if you heard this before, but anytime you see the RSI come up over 70 on the 15-minute chart, it's typically a good signal, a good sign for to trim some off the top, or to essentially close your position depending on how you're trading. Because if we look at this here, let me go ahead and pull it a little closer. This first initial increase may not look that big, but I think at the time it probably was. Yep, that was almost a 12% push, right? So we had a 12% increase right there. Price jumped up over 70 as far as the RSI is concerned. In other words, it's considered overbought at that point. It retraced back down. So it came back down roughly half the distance, so it probably came down about 6%. So it corrected itself and ramped back up again. Coincidentally, the same thing happened again. The next ramp up, even though it capped off right here, was followed by a retracement. So again, it's not 100%, but it's well above 50. It's a pretty good indication, unless there's a strong bull run and the price just keeps on shooting up and up, that you will see some type of retracement followed by an RSI over 70. So just please be mindful of that. You don't have to necessarily pull out because of that one thing. You want to look at other factors too, but that is a strong indication of a sell signal. And the inverse also applies with a buy signal when it's under 30, right? So look over here. RSI comes peak down right under 30, and what do you know? price hikes back up right there. Again, it was still in consolidation, so it eventually leveled itself out, but it did essentially retrace itself back up, right? If there is such a term to describe that, a reverse retracement, so to speak. I don't think that's the term, but that's the concept. The price will eventually level itself out if it gets pushed up too high too quickly. The last thing to pay attention to, of course, is the volume weighted average price. So if you see this blue line here, let me go ahead and just close these guys out so you can see that. The blue line is essentially the volume weighted average price. So in other words, that's telling us what the average price is of the last 24-hour period as a, correction, it's the 24-hour volume, okay, the last 24-hour volume as an average price. Okay, so when you see that line there, that basically tells us this is what the price should be based on the volume. Because again, volume is one of the most underrated indicators that people use. People most likely don't even really look at it. It's probably the first thing you want to pay attention to and kind of understand how it factors in, because these things can tell you a lot, right? But the great thing about the VWAP is it kind of translates that for you. So instead of being like, well, what does this red bar mean? It really pretty much just tells you that the price should be right here when it's actually right here. So when there's a variance between the VWAP and it's too high, the price will likely come down as well. Oftentimes you'll see the RSI being over 70 and the price variance being too high. In other words, right here, if you can see the RSI peaked up right here, and of course you go from the bottom to the top, that is 12%. And of course we saw the retracement continue right up here as well, and that was about 13.5% above VWAP, right? So anytime I would say comfortably that standard deviation is over 10%, then you're going to find the price coming back down soon. So again, when I'm trading myself, I look for those indicators. That those are usually sell signals for me. Granted, it's not 100%. Oftentimes I can get out a little too early, but I still take profit. That's the key here, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to be profitable traders, don't we? We shouldn't be greedy, risky traders. We should be conservative, smart, intelligent traders, right? That's kind of how I approach it, because I used to be greedy. I hate to even put it that way, but I used to want to try to find the top. You'll never find the top, right? It's really, really rare that you'll have that, and you'll have that one instance where you do, and you think you're a king, right? And then you get eventually humbled by future terrible experiences, and I'm trying to prevent that. That's why I guess I kind of go on these little rants regarding these things, because it's important you learn good fundamentals, good skills, and if you are just jumping in without confirmation and not using these indicators, these are telling you everything that's going on, and you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, right? So be smart, be tactful, think in advance, and always set a goal before you start trading. My goal is to grow my wallet by 1% every day. It may not seem like a lot, but if you take 1% growth every single day, and you just say you start with 5,000, at the end of 1 year, that's somewhere in the range of 187,000. Okay. So there's just some serious numbers that you can really grow with if you are smart and careful. You don't have to get a 10x in one day. All these other YouTubers have a tendency of telling you what the next major coin will be. I'm not here to predict anything for you. I'm here to help you get skills that allow you to understand what's going on, what the progression is, so you can essentially predict for yourself based on what's going to happen next. Again, in small time frames, small increments. Either way, I digress. I just wanted to cover that with you. So pay attention to the volume weighted average price as well as the RSI. Last thing we want to look at is perhaps the 1 minute chart, just to kind of see what's going on here. And on the 1 minute chart, I do like using the EMA line, which is my EMA 15. This kind of tells me roughly what the what the moving average is. It's an exponential moving average, so it works a little different than traditional moving averages. It moves a lot faster, if you will. So it responds to price action a lot easier, which is why you see 9 and 20 as a common EMA line on a lot of defaults. I prefer the 15 because it's right in the middle and it's less noise. It's just one moving average. Either way, in this scenario here, we can see the VWAP line here. Price is coming down to potentially test the VWAP, which it hasn't yet, but it's staying above, which is good, because this does work as a support level. I forgot to mention that. Volume weighted average price is essentially a moving support and resistance line. So use it like that. Oftentimes price will come down and break through it, just like a traditional support, or it will bounce off and continue to work as a progressional support line. That being said, on the 1 minute chart here, I mean, honestly, I don't like the way this looks because it's completely regressing. It's just coming down, making lower lows and then higher lows. So I don't really like when I see these kind of patterns here personally, but I want to give you an example of what to look for if you're going to just say take entry on something like this. Again, it's easier said than done because this is in looking back, right? So of course it's easier to find an example that worked perfectly, but this is a good example if you see here. So if you take a look here on the 1 minute chart, see the price is consistently under the EMA 15. So there's no good indication of a buy signal here personally. Even these three here looks tasty, right? It's still under the EMA line, no good. You're above VWAP, which is great, but under EMA, no good. Because what I always look for is I will look for at least 3 solid green bars on the 1 minute chart that are above either the EMA or the VWAP line. Preferably both. In a perfect world, this continues to come down and both lines kind of intersect, and that creates kind of a stronger support. But just say in this example here, you see these two green bars? It looks nice, right? Awesome. Wait for the third green bar to close. The third green bar closes green, like this for example here, then you would want to take entry at this point right here. And that's what I do. A lot of people that are riskier traders will say that's crazy, they would take entry a lot earlier, but I like to wait for further confirmation, and to me 3 bars on the 1 minute chart is enough, because oftentimes you see the whole 1-2 1-2 pattern. So I mean, that works really well for me. Do what you feel is good, but I would say again, wait for confirmation in your own way. But to me, good confirmation is 3 solid green bars closing in a row above either the EMA 15 or the VWAP to essentially give us a good perspective on it continuing upwards. Now, as you can see, it did continue up. There are some cases in point where it comes right back down and reverses on you, right? But that's the main reason why you want to wait for the price to be above the EMA line, because it's essentially a moving average, and it tells you that there's momentum heading bullishly instead of bearish, right? So you're not fighting the odds, you're actually using the odds in your favor. That's kind of what I like to try to drill home here. So again, that's just an example of how to use the 1 minute chart. I prefer to take entry on the 15-minute chart, wait for confirmation when I see 2 solid 15-minute green bars, but you don't always get that scenario. But here's an example of what 2 solid 15-minute green bars would look like. If you see here, you can see them right there, probably plain as day. So for me, I would wait 15 to 30 minutes, always 30 minutes, for confirmation. So as soon as you see these two close above the EMA and the 15, or sorry, the EMA 15 and the VWAP, then this would be an entry point right there for you. Coincidentally, it jumped up really hard, but that's because the price came down and it tested these support levels, right? Do you see how that's went up and continued over and then try to bottom out and go down below? Support levels like, no, that's not going to happen. We're going to keep the price above. Since it stayed above, we got that confirmation after 30 minutes. 30 minutes later, it shot up, and that would have been a gain of approximately 11%. So I probably would have taken my profits somewhere up here in this range, because I would have been, again, paying attention to the RSI. You see the RSI is up over 70 right as soon as it hit that point. Boom, time to sell off and take your profit, call it a day. All right, it can literally be that easy. I know I'm making it sound easy, but if you use these little things to your advantage, then you're going to be putting yourself at an advantage, right? That's the whole point. This isn't gambling. See, gambling is when the house always wins, right? If you are educated and you use these type of, tactics, then you're going to put yourself at a much better advantage, and you're going to become the house, if that makes sense. Then you have control over when you enter, when you exit, and instead of always having losing trades, you will more consistently have winning trades. Okay, the last thing I want to note here too is that when you do stuff like this, when you're taking entry, never take a full position. So if you have $1,000, don't risk the entire 1,000 on that push. Risk only to say 20 to 30%. See, risk management is a very important part of trading. I'm going to have instructional videos on that soon regarding risk management, as well as explaining all these things I just explained in more detail. But I can tell you, if you're risking your full portfolio on every trade, you will get lucky sometimes, but you'll eventually get burned. And I'm speaking from experience. I've been burned. I don't want you to, okay? That's why I try to reiterate this. So enough about all that. Hopefully you found that beneficial. If you do, comment below, let me know. If you haven't joined our Telegram community, it's probably time to do that. We have an awesome community over there. And also bear in mind, I have a Patreon account as well, so if you want to show your support, please feel free to do so. We do have options in there for private Discord channels where we can communicate openly throughout the weeks, and kind of go from there. Either way, it's kind of a new aspect. Hopefully it takes off, and thanks again for your time. We'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.